Okay, we're just about to go live on Facebook. Okay, welcome everyone to Stories for Hope, Healing, and Belonging. Thanks very much for joining us today. So Mel, would you like to start us off with Same, Same, But Different? I think the second story is intended for a slightly older audience, so I thought it might be good to start with that story. And then for anyone who needs to leave, they can, and anyone else is welcome to stay.
Certainly, yes.
Great. I'll just share my screen here. And away we go.
Same, Same, But Different. It's written by Jenny Sue Kostecki Shaw. Picture pals. In art class, I painted a picture of my world. My teacher mailed it across the oceans. This is my world. A boy drew back with colors of the sea. This is my world. Same, same, but different. P.S. Who are you? This is me. My name is Elliot, and I love to climb trees. My name is Kalish, and I love to climb trees too. Same, same, but different. P.S. Do you live in a tree? Oh, this is me. This is my tree house where I play. I live in a red brick building with my mom, dad, and babysitter. I live with my family too, all 23 of us. My mom, dad, sister, brother, grandmother, grandfather, aunties, uncles, cousins. And our animals. I have pets too, but not nearly as many as you. Same, same, but different. P.S. What does it look like where you live? A great river flows through my village. Peacocks dance under trees shaped like umbrellas. The sun is giant and especially hot here. In my city, the sun hides behind the buildings as tall as the sky. Taxis, buses, and cars fill the streets. Here, there are few cars and still too much traffic. Same, same, but different. I ride a bus to school with my friends. So do I. Same, same, but different. This is our alphabet. Oh, this is our alphabet. Oh, and he's written Kalish and Elliot. Same, same, but different. My favorite class is art, where I can be anything. My favorite class is yoga, where I can be anything. Same but different. This is how my friends and I say hello. You, me. Clasp and shake. Secret spiral. Snap, bump. This is how my friends and I say hello. You and me. Namaste. Same but different. We're best friends, even though we live in two different worlds. Or do we? Different, but the same. Oh, what a lovely story.
Thank you. Just see Diane coming in here. Hello, Diane. Welcome. Sorry if you were waiting in the waiting room. Diane, I assume you're tuning in to watch rather than read. Is that correct? But you have a mask on and you're on mute, so I can't tell if you're trying to talk or not. I think we'll assume that Diane and her friends are tuning in to watch.
Okay.
Let me know if that is incorrect. So our next story, there are some phrases in Haitian Creole, and so we are going to turn to somebody who has a YouTube channel called Sankofa Read Aloud. And so we're going to borrow from this existing reader, and we'll play along and we'll follow along with the story. So I'm just going to share my screen so you can see the pictures while she's reading. And we're just having some technical difficulty with the children who are trying to join us. So just give me one more moment, please. Hello again, Diane, can you hear us? We'll get started with the story now.
Aunt Luce's Talking Painting, written by Francie Latour, pictures by Ken Daly. I hope that you enjoy this amazing story. In my mother's bedroom, behind the family pictures and the jar that holds her wedding day flowers, a painting sits on a shelf. It's a painting of me, my eyes almost closed, like I'm dreaming. My braids hang like cold-colored ropes. My face fills the frame, so big and so close that if you look long enough, it starts to look like a whole land. Brown hills melting into yellow valleys, melting into red riverbeds, and even the river's silver light running smooth over the rocks. When I think back to the first time my Auntie Luce painted me, I lose myself in the memory of people and places she brings to life with her brushes. Fortresses and high cliffs and crayon-colored boats by the sea. Gingerbread houses and coconuts poked with straws for coconut water. When I want to hear the stories of Haiti, the place where my mother was born, I talk to Aunt Luce's paintings. The paintings always talk back. My mother says I was too young to remember Aunt Luce painting me. You were only 7. Okuwe usonje jusa. But I do remember. It is December, the time of year when I leave the snow and snowman making behind. I step onto the airplane, and when I step off again, a wall of heat wraps my body and instantly warms my blood. Inside the airport, Aunt Luce waves me to her, and the metal bracelets along her arms start to sing. My first question is always the same. Can I sit for you, Aunt Luce? Will you paint me this time, please? Tishushu, ufe kem konta, she says, cupping my cheeks, but not answering my question. She opens the trunk and makes room for my suitcase, pushing the pallets and clinking jars to one side. Then we drive through the city streets, and the familiar scenes fly by my open window. There go the boys selling water ice by the pink cathedral. There go the market women balancing fruit baskets on their heads. There go the tap-tap buses painted with soccer stars and signs that say, Sejinin Nuye, we are the children of Guinea, of West Africa. Soon the city falls under our feet, and fog carpets the mountain road to the house. As we climb the hills, a question comes to me. When Mom left for the States, why didn't you come? Your mother and I are different, Tishu, she says. When I close my eyes for good, I want Haiti to be the last thing I see. I help bring in the easel and sacks filled with paint tubes and rags. Aunt Luce doesn't waste any time quizzing me on last year's lessons. Haiti, the land of mountains. That was the name of this place before the Europeans came. She snaps vanilla beans into a pot of oatmeal. Before the Spanish and the French, before your mother. She doesn't tell you these stories? At home, my parents play compa records with friends late into the night. They argue over how Haiti got broken and how it can be fixed. My brother and I listen from the top of the stairs. They tell stories about crooked presidents and bad armies. I say, is that true? Aunt Luce slides a placemat onto the table and sets down the bowl. The truth is a hard thing to untangle, she says, like a big knot of yarn. To tell the truth about this place, this tiny, tiny place, you have to look at its strong, powerful neighbor. You have to look at America. We put black mushrooms in a pot to soak for dinner. Then we tie on our smocks and take a familiar walk. Down the stone path, past the chickens and the garden of chou-block flowers, into Aunt Luce's studio. Inside, Haiti's heroes greet me, Belair and Flon, her head wrapped, her needle stitching a new flag for a free nation. I see Dessalines and Louverture, the general who found a way to win and force Napoleon back across the ocean. You remember what Louverture means, she asked. I could never forget. The opening, I say, the man who opened the way. My own heroes are here too. My grandfather, the tailor who made suits for the businessmen in town. My great-grandmother, who wore her hair parted in two buns and went blind from old age. If these paintings could talk, I wonder what they would tell me. With my slow, broken Creole, would they know I am their daughter? Shita, she says, pulling a metal stool in the middle of the floor. And when the moment comes when I finally sit for my first portrait, I realize something. Wanting to be painted is one thing. Sitting still to be painted is another. I can feel my legs twitching and then my arms to keep my neck from tilting. I stop talking and my jaw locks. For a while, the painting knife and my auntie singing bracelets are the only sounds in the room. Do you know why I paint, Tishu? She asks after a long silence. I never thought about that. Because you're good at it? She laughs deep in her throat, then mixes more reds and browns. Because Haiti is so beautiful, I ask. Not always, she says. Sometimes it's almost too hard to look at. I paint to remember what I've seen and heard and smelled and felt. The balconies wrapped around houses, which seem to go on forever, the fists pounding on neighborhood doors and sending people into hiding. To paint Haiti takes the darkest colors and the brightest ones and all the colors in between. In 2 days of sitting, Aunt Luce paints me from many different angles. On one easel, I can see myself turned completely to the side. My face, I see colors I've never seen in a mirror. The caramel in my great-grandmother's skin and the deep berry in my grandfather's. I see the colors of metal roofs over houses with no upstairs or downstairs. I see the ash of earthquake dust. From that time, the ground shook and opened up. Aunt Luce says our faces are like maps. I can trace yours halfway around the world, from the kingdoms of Benin to the sugarcane fields that turned into battlefields, where we fought to the death for our freedom, she says, all the way to this room in this light. I gather the brushes in a rag and follow my aunt to the washroom. Over the sink, I let the colors bleed together. In the water, ash to cocoa to rust, butterscotch to nut, and nut to clay. You paint to remember Haiti, I say, but I don't feel Haitian enough. Sometimes I don't feel American enough. Aunt Luce holds out her hands. Try not to think of it as one or the other, but both together. She says, you were born outside, that's true, but you hold this place in your skin, deep in your bones. Colors do not lie. Her hands remind me of my mother's, lean but also strong. Brown on brown, she folds mine into hers. I wonder what my hands will do when I'm older. I wonder what stories they will tell. Can I take it home, Aunt Luce? Can I keep the portrait? Tissue, she says. It's yours. These colors, this people, this place belong to you, and you belong to them always.
Okay, what a beautiful story of belonging and history and weaving identity in such a beautiful way. I think this is such a nice way to teach history. I think literature is such a good way to kind of preserve history in a way that feels like I guess it's just meaning. It's a very meaningful way to tell a story. I think it really captured my attention with all the color, and you could tell there were little stories that kind of pointed to other stories, and it really made me want to learn more. What are other people thinking from those stories?
I love this story. I think it is very important because I think it's very important to tell your own story rather than to read your story from another person or another place. And I think this is the strength of this book, is that the author, who's Haitian, is telling her own story, and the story of a culture and a heritage and identity. And I think that's very powerful for children to have that connection. And I think this book really tells the story, that the strength of people, the strength of their history. And you know, when she says about, I wrote it down, about the neighbor. When you talk about Haiti, you talk about is it the country, you're talking about America. They're a big strong neighbor, and I think you can be overpowered by your neighbor, by somebody so big in power. So that's why it's so important for you to tell your own story and to preserve your own history, and not have it told by other people. And I think that's yeah, that's what I kind of got from that story. Very beautiful.
And it really does highlight what I know we've been talking about with Compass, is about bringing that first person voice into the classroom. And so this is such a beautiful way of doing that, right? Is to have somebody tell their own story as opposed to trying to tell a story from an outside perspective. Yeah, I really agree that that's a really beautiful representation. I also really think it did a good job of showing the complexity of identities when she talked about being American or being Haitian, and saying, don't think of it as either or, that, you know, we're all unique in our identities and we're a blend of all of the different things that have happened to us and to our family and our experiences in the world. So I think that was a really beautiful message that came through strongly for me.
Yeah. I love the idea of the painting, and painting what stories comes from the painting, and the story of the history, and the story of the little girl, and seeing her using the colors in her face to describe the land and to describe her family, and that connection of how painting, because it's preserving the past, isn't it? You know, she's painting that history and telling the story through that. I thought that was a lovely way to say it, how, you know, your face is like a map, and how the description within that was very lovely. And the conversations that you can have with paintings and with art. I thought that was very lovely when they went into the room to see the different people in history who contributed to the history of Haiti, and then painting the little girl and how she is part of that history. I thought that was a lovely way to draw it in.
Anyone else who's tuning in? Oh, I've got a comment here, Yvonne. I like that there was no value judgment, that one wasn't better than the other. It was reflected in the first book as well, that the sameness and difference of experiences was to be celebrated. Absolutely.
Yeah, I really liked the first book as well, wasn't it? The same and different. And I think that is a story that a lot of children can really identify with, you know, where they play, and, you know, the trees in their, what is in their immediate surrounding. And having that is a lovely way then to talk to other children, you know what I mean, to build that bridge and that connection about the similarities and the difference, and celebrating it, you know. It's both lovely story.
Yeah, because I think both looking at things being the same, I think that on its own can be problematic, because we're not all the same in every way, but also just focusing on the difference can create this kind of divided world, right? And so I really love how that weaves the importance of both of those ideas for children to be able to explore their sameness and their difference in all of these different ways. I think that was a really, really beautiful example of how to do that through this relationship that was developed across the world through pen pals. I wonder if people do pen pals anymore. I remember finding it to be a very compelling way to develop relationships when I was a child, and I'd be curious to speak with some of the educators at Compass to see if that's a practice that we're still doing. I don't know if anyone here has any reflections, more contemporary ones than the ones that I have to relate to. I'll have to ask that question to some of my colleagues later on. I also think that this story series is kind of a nice way that we can connect people from all different communities through this shared story time. So yeah, I'm really glad that those of you who are here could tune in, and to anyone watching after, I hope that you feel a connection with this shared space, even if we're looking at it at different times. But we can certainly use the Facebook page as a way to build on each other's ideas between stories. I think we'll probably meet maybe once more in 2020, I think, and then we'll take a little pause and we'll resume in 2021. So unless anyone has any other reflections, just thank you all for joining, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Oh yeah, maybe people who are looking for holiday gifts can look to the stories we shared. Yes, let's post a list of all the stories. I'll do that so that people can see what are some of these good stories that we could use. And thanks to Diane for joining in. It's hard to participate during busy lunchtime in the classroom, but we're really glad that you're here in the way that you are. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of the day.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.